Good morning, Braywick Court School. What are you going to do today? Learn, enjoy, succeed. It is assembly time and it is Thursday, the 18th of June. And we have got some birthdays to celebrate today. 2 children who are going to be in school with us for their birthday. So a very special happy birthday to Apsara and a very special happy birthday to Amber Ashwell. So you will be celebrating your birthdays in school with us. We're all going to sing to you and you'll be able to hear the children in your group singing too, which will be really nice. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Apsara and Amber. Happy birthday to you. Have a really lovely day. Right, it's Mrs. Donnelly's assembly, which means that we're going to start with a quiz, and I've got 5 questions for you. Here we go. Question number 1. What 2 colours would you mix together to make green? So think about if you had the paint out in class, if you had 2 different colours to put together to make green paint, what 2 colours would you use? Okay, number 2. Which country is famous for its canals, its Colosseum, and making pasta? And the same country is also quite famous for making pizza. All right, have a little think about that. Question number 3. What is the name of the river that flows through London? And this is the same river that flows through Windsor and Maidenhead. So it's near to our houses. So what's the name of that river? Do you know? That's your 3rd question, a geography question. What about this one? Which theme park calls itself the happiest place on earth? Which theme park? So I'll give you a clue. It is not in England. All right, where do you think the happiest place on earth might be? Or people who run it think it is anyway. Right, number 5. Can you name 3 of the animals in the Chinese zodiac? Don't worry, that's not as complicated as it might sound. When we learn about Chinese New Year, we learn the story of the animals crossing the river. Do you remember that story? And they all try and cross in different ways and they have a race. And all of these animals then have a year named after them in the Chinese zodiac. So I just would like you to see if you can think about 3 of those animals. Okay? Right then, now actually we're going to go through the answers first today. So here we go. You don't have to wait until the end. Here we go. So which 2 colours would you mix together to make green? You would mix yellow and blue. And when you're mixing, always start with the lighter colour. So put the yellow in first and add a tiny little bit of blue at a time. That'd be my top artist's tip for you. Number 2, where would you find canals, the Colosseum, pasta and pizza? Italy. Well done if you got that one right. Number 3. What's the name of the river that flows through London and also through Windsor and Maidenhead? It's called the Thames. Number 4. Which theme park calls itself the happiest place on earth? Disneyland. And number 5. Can you name 3 of the animals? Well, here they all are. See if you got 3 of these. Rat, ox, tiger, rabbit, dragon, snake, horse, goat, monkey, rooster, dog and pig. So children born this year would be in the year of the rat. And the story says that your characteristics, parts of your personality, might be linked to the type of animal of the year that you were born. So I'm a rooster. So if you've got time, you might go off and find out what type of animal you would be. And I know the Evening Owls did some work on that, so they might know already. Okay, there we are. So let's move on with our assembly. Now what we're going to talk about today is going to take some really big concentration from you. I need you to really switch on your listening ears, to switch off your talking mouths and to do some really careful thinking, okay? So before we do that, stand up, have a little wiggle, shake everything around, shake your arms, shake your legs, jump up and down. Make sure that you are ready to listen to some of the important things that I've got to say to you, okay? And then when you're ready, sit back down. Right then, here we go. So we are going to talk about a topic that is very current at the moment. There's been lots of information on the TV and in the news about it, and it's called Black Lives Matter. And I think that it's very important that you understand about some of the things that are going on in the world. And some of the news and the things on telly that you might have seen might have been a bit confusing for you. So when that happens, I think it's really important that we explain it to you in a way that will make sense and that you'll be able to understand. So that's what we're going to do today. So one of the things I'm going to use to help me is the Week magazine, because we like this, don't we? This is a special magazine aimed at children. So they've thought really carefully about the information that they've put in here to make sure that it is appropriate for your age. But some of the things that we're going to talk about you might find are a little bit, they might worry you, or they might upset you a little bit, or you might find that you have some questions about some of the things that we've talked about. So if that happens, you just need to make sure that you talk to a grown-up about it. So you could talk to somebody in your house at home, you could talk to somebody at school. It doesn't matter whether you're at school or whether you're at home, you can still speak to somebody at school because we're still here for you all of the time, aren't we? So if you've got any questions at the end, make sure that you talk to a grown-up about it, and I'll remind you of that again before we finish. Okay, so the Week magazine have got us there, so this was last week's, this was the 6th of June. They have got as their front page headline that people in America were protesting. Okay, now we're going to find out what it means and what it's all about. So, protesters call for equality, peace, and justice across the US. So the US is the United States. So this article was talking about something that didn't happen in England. This was talking about something which happened in America. And the people who were protesting, which means that they wanted people to listen very carefully to what they were saying, called for equality, which is about being fair and treating everybody equally and the same. Peace, so no violence, nobody being mean, everybody being kind to each other. And justice, which again really is to do with things being fair and people being treated equally. So that's what they wanted, and now we need to find out. There have been a series of protests across the US in response to the death of a man called George Floyd. And here's a picture of George Floyd. Here, look. People in the US and in other countries too are calling for justice, peace and equality. So why are people protesting? Well, George Floyd is a black US citizen, and the police officer who arrested him and really hurt him was a white police officer. And people think that the white police officer was really mean to George Floyd, not because he'd done something wrong really, but actually because of the colour of his skin. They think that the reason that this happened was because the white police officer didn't like George Floyd just because he was black, just because the colour of his skin was different to his. Now that's a really horrible thing to happen, isn't it? And when that does happen, that's called racism. And what that means, racism means that you have an idea about what somebody might be like just because of the colour of their skin, not because you know anything about them at all. And I bet that's really hard for you to understand, because I know that all of our children at Brawick Court are kind and are friends with absolutely everybody, and you wouldn't even notice things that are different about each other, like the colour of your skin or anything about you. You just look at somebody, what they're like on the inside and their personality. But there's been a problem in the world recently, and what happened to George Floyd made people realise about that a little bit more, because some people in the world don't treat everybody the same. So I wondered how I could explain that to you a little bit better. So here was my idea that I came up with, okay? I think that I might have a preconceived idea, or I might make a judgment about wasps. I know that I really don't like wasps. And if I was having a picnic and a wasp came along, I would think, oh no, This wasp is just here to cause trouble and to try to hurt me. I hate wasps. And even though normally I'm really kind and nice to everybody, I would not want that wasp anywhere near me, and I might try and swat it away with something, or I might try and trap it underneath something, and I might not be very kind to that wasp because I don't want it to hurt me. Now, unfortunately, there are some people in the world who feel like that about other people. And it's not fair that they think like that. They don't think like that because they know anything about those people. They just think like that because somebody has put an idea in their head to say bad things about other people. And if those bad things are about the colour of their skin, then that is what we would call racism. So if the colour of somebody else's skin is different to theirs, they might think that they don't want to be that person's friend, or that they're not going to be a very good person. And we know, don't we, that that's not a good thing to think at all, and not true. You can't make a judgment on somebody until you know them. But unfortunately, there are people in the world who do that, and that is what we call racism. And that is why people are campaigning and protesting to make sure that that stops and that people aren't treated in that way anymore. So, in the Week magazine the following week, this was Friday's edition, then there was even more information about some more protests that happened. And this information was about what happened in England, because people were very cross and upset in the United States of America. And then people in England started to realise that actually they were cross and upset about this as well. So what happened in the UK? So that's the United Kingdom, that's where we live. In the UK, around 137,000 people demonstrated in cities including Bristol, Cardiff, Glasgow and London. And then there's a good question in this article. It says, is there racism in the UK today? So are there people in our country who are racist, who think mean things about other people without knowing anything about them, as well as in other countries like the United States of America? Well, there's some evidence to suggest that yes, actually that is the case. So, not in our school, but it's important that you know about things that are happening in our wider community. So some people in England might treat people unfairly because of the colour of their skin, and people feel that it's really, really important that this stops. And so people wanted to show how they felt about that, and to make a big fuss to try to get people to change their minds. So one of the things that they did was they held protests, and this is one type of protest that happened, and this was in Brighton. So this was a silent protest. So all of these people came out and they were very quiet and very still, and they kept distanced from each other, and they wore their face masks to try to keep safe, but they wanted to all come together so that everybody could see that actually they think that racism should stop. And there are some other people who've been expressing their views as well. So this is from Blue Peter. Do any of you watch Blue Peter? If you do, you probably know some of these presenters already. And these presenters made a little film that you can find online, because that's where I've taken this from, that says that some of these presenters found that people had been unkind to them because of the colour of their skin, that they gave examples of when that had happened during their lives, and that the presenters came together to say that they disagreed with that and think that it's time that racism should stop. And I would agree with that, would you? Yes, I think they make a very good point there. Okay, so who else has been making their views known at the moment? Well, football is about to start back up. The Premier League is starting, and they have decided that every single player in every single team for the first 12 matches of the Premier League, where normally they would have their name on the backs of their shirts, every shirt will say Black Lives Matter. So Black Lives Matter is the movement that was started to put a stop to racism. So they are all going to show that they agree that racism should stop by wearing that on their shirts. So that's a really great idea, isn't it? Okay, so here's an important question. Is it working? So all of these people in all of these different ways have told us what they think. Is it making any difference? Well, the answer is it is starting to make a difference. It's going to be really, really hard to stop every single person in the world being racist, because racism has been going on for a really long time. And unfortunately, there are people in our world who haven't been raised in a community where they are accepting and tolerant of everybody. Some people in their lives had parents or teachers or influences from the media or other places that might have told them that actually people who look different to them aren't such good people. But it's time for us to start thinking that that needs to change. And with all of this coverage that's been going on recently, it is starting to happen. There's lots and lots and lots of things happening in lots of different ways that are making people rethink about the way that they think and trying really hard to make sure that in their lives there isn't any racism and they are treating everybody fairly. So it's been a really good start. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted to talk to you about it, because I think this is a very important moment in history that people will talk about. And also, I think that there are things that every single person should do, including us at school and you. So, what can we do? Well, this is the important thing really, that everybody can do something. And that's what we need to realise, that this involves every single person. Everybody needs to make sure that they are doing what they can to put a stop to racism. So we started to think about what that might look like at school. And one of the things that we looked at is our curriculum and the things that we teach you. And I thought this was a really important message that I read. Students don't need a special one-off lesson on Black Lives Matter. They need a curriculum in a school that clearly demonstrates this consistently and continually. So what that means is we do need to teach you about these really important things like we're doing now, but also we need to make sure that everything that we teach you all of the time teaches you to be accepting of everybody and that everybody is equal. So through all of our lessons, our maths and our English, our history and our geography, that we celebrate everybody and how wonderful their difference is. So the teachers have been looking at our curriculum to make sure that our curriculum is doing a really good job of that. And the other thing that we would always make sure of is that if we did hear anybody being unkind to anybody else, that we would deal with that very seriously to make sure that everybody knows that that is not okay, and we will not accept people being unkind to each other in any way, but definitely we would not accept anybody saying anything that was racist or unkind about somebody else because of the colour of their skin or their background. Okay, so what can you do? Because actually everybody can do something. So have you ever heard this phrase, never judge a book by its cover? So what that means is you shouldn't look at what something looks like on the outside, you should think about what something looks like on the inside. And that is just as important for people as it is for books. So you should never think a certain thing about somebody because of the way that they look. You should wait to get to know that person and find out more about them. And then that leads me on to the next point. In a world where you can be anything, be kind. Now, this is a very important part of our school values, isn't it? Kindness. And we just need to make sure that we are being kind to everybody all of the time, and we never say or do anything that might hurt people's feelings or make them feel sad or upset. But there's one more thing that I think that you could do that is actually even braver and possibly a little bit harder than doing that. And this says, stand up for what you believe in. So what this means is that if you ever heard somebody else say something that you thought was unkind, I think you need to be brave enough to talk to them about it. So let me give you an example. If somebody said something and you thought that what they had said was unkind about another person, I think you could say, I don't think that you should say that. I think that is unkind or mean, and I think that you need to stop. And I don't think that if you said that, that would be rude. I think that that would be strong, and that would be a good idea of something to say. So you just need to be brave enough to do it, because the only way that we can stop people being unkind to others is if they understand that nobody else will stand for that everybody disagrees that people should be unkind to each other. And then hopefully not only can we make sure that we're doing the right thing, but we can help other people to do the right thing as well. Okay, we're not going to have a song or anything to finish with today. We're just going to have a minute to think about some of the important things that we've talked about, and to think about any questions that you might have. And if you have got any questions or anything that we've talked about you think is a bit worrying or upsetting, that you have a think about who it is that you're going to talk to about that, because that's always really important to do. So we're just going to have a few moments of quiet for you to think about the things that we've said and what you might do about it next, in case you think that there's anything that's needed. All right? Okay, well done for listening so carefully today. Thank you. And the important message to take away is that we should treat everybody fairly and equally, and see whether we can help other people to do the same thing. And that would help to make our world a happier place. Okay, well done. Work hard. Have a good day. I'll see you soon.